On July 26, 2022, 22-year-old Jaiswar died after the motorcycle that he was on hit a pothole on the Mumbai-Nashik highway near Ranjanoli Naka in Bhiwandi. Jaiswar and his friend Janakram Sharma, 23, who was driving the motorcycle, both carpenters from Ulhasnagar, were on their way home after returning from work at a Bhiwandi warehouse where the tragedy struck. On learning of the crash, local police rushed to the spot and took Jaiswar to the Indira Gandhi Memorial Hospital, where he was declared dead on arrival. Large stretches of both city roads and highways across India are riddled with massive potholes, leading to traffic gridlocks and road crashes. In 2021 alone, around 1,500 road crash fatalities resulted from potholes. The cases of road crash fatalities resulting from a host of infrastructural issues has been a sad reality for many years now. It goes without saying then that the quality of roads plays an important part in ensuring the safety of those using them. Welcome to Milestones, the SaveLIFE podcast with me, Karthik Nagarajan. This is a show where we discuss various aspects of road safety with the aim of ultimately working towards safer roads and a safer India. I'm your host, Karthik Nagarajan, and today on the show, we're joined by Dr. Sudeshna Mitra, who currently manages a road safety research program at the Global Road Safety Facility at the World Bank. She also provides operational cross-support to road safety projects in India and Bangladesh. Dr. Mitra is an experienced transport professional with a PhD in transportation from Arizona State University. Her expertise is in road safety with skills in crash data modeling, transport planning, design, and operation. Before joining the World Bank, Dr. Mitra served as an associate professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and as an assistant professor at the California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo, California. I'm also joined by Dr. Roshan Jose, who's an architect with a PhD in highway operations and road safety from IIT Kharagpur. Currently, he's the Associate Director, Projects at SaveLIFE Foundation. Dr. Jose heads the Zero-Fatality Corridor initiative, which aims to reduce road crash fatalities by more than 50% on various highways and expressways across India. Passionate about road safety in the Indian context, Dr. Jose believes that in spite of all the challenges, safer roads across India is an achievable goal. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Jose, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Karthik.
Dr. Mitra, I wanted to start with you. The crash, fatality, and injury numbers before us make it evident that our roads are dangerous. While we understand that a host of factors have a role in crashes, injuries, and fatalities, what is the specific role that road infrastructure plays in these numbers?
Thank you, Karthik, for this question. And as you have rightly pointed, that infrastructure does really play a very significant role. That's why we are discussing this today. So I would say the infrastructure plays the most significant role in deciding the outcome of the crash. The crash can occur for many different reasons, human error or, the poor bad weather or anything, right? But then when a crash occurs, what will be the outcome of the crash, whether it is a fatal crash or severe crash versus whether it is a minor injury or property damage only crash, that depends to a large extent on the infrastructure. If we plan and design the infrastructure and construct and maintain it in a way that it's safe and forgiving, then, and that meaning that, the road and the roadside, it is designed in such a way or maintained in such a way, it will actually save life even though there is a crash, right? So I would say the outcome of the crash is largely dependent on infrastructure. And if we can maintain safe and forgiving infrastructure, we can reduce the number of injuries and fatalities. And that way, it will also reduce the likelihood of crash even from occurring in the first place.
Borrowing from your work that is closely associated with understanding road infrastructure and transport and engineering, I have a couple of questions. One is, which countries, in your opinion, are most closely related to the Indian scenario of heterogeneous traffic? And of course, my follow-up question was going to be, in your opinion, which countries perform better than India in terms of road safety?
Yeah, so for example, there are many countries, mainly in South Asia or even in East Asia, where the traffic composition and mix is very similar to Indian
Hmm,
condition. We have, many non-motorized vehicles, then we have two-wheelers, lot of, vulnerable road users on the road. And so, South Asia, East Asia, even many African countries for that matter, is very similar the way we operate. So India is not alone, and
hmm,
India is not very different. But if you ask me that countries that have done well, of course, in India, our population and number of vehicles are quite high. But Indian condition is very similar to even to Vietnam. But if
hmm,
you see in Vietnam, Vietnam has recently done very well in terms of road safety, in terms of fatality reduction, total crash reduction, and yeah, motorcycle helmet wearing actually played a very big role because Vietnam's motorcycle population is very high, and their number of deaths of motorcyclists was very high, but they were able to reduce that. So I would say is still they're working. It's not that we are also not helping Vietnam. There is
hmm.
a scope for further improvement. But Vietnam being a middle income country and India being a middle income country, I see a lot of similarities. And I would say that's a country in the region that has performed very well.
Right. Yeah. That question also came from the fact that I see different generations of vehicles in our roads, right? Right from, say, a bullock cart to a
Yeah.
cycle to the most cutting edge electric scooter to the high end SUV to a large truck and all of them. But glad to know that this mix is not just a very unique Indian mix. There are other countries sort of dealing with the problem, which then leads me to my other question, which is: are there specific laws in these other countries that enable them to perform better than maybe how we're doing?
Yeah, definitely. For example, the law is the first thing, and
Hmm,
generally, if you see most road safety laws, they are targeted to specific road safety risk factors, right? So, helmet wearing, seat belt wearing, speeding, these are, definitely different laws. And
right.
again, taking the example from, Vietnam, they have done phenomenal in terms of helmet wearing. And in a recent conference of Bloomberg Philanthropy in the month of April in Mumbai, I learned that their helmet wearing rate in city regions is as high as even 100%, and overall in the country they say it's 90%. Maybe in the rural context it's a bit less because of enforcement, but they have done very well. So to answer
Hmm,
to your question, I would say there are laws targeted towards different risk factors. And if and not only having the law, like implementation of the law, enforcement of the law is very
yeah.
important. So definitely these countries that have done well, they have passed significant or important road safety laws, and they have implemented it well.
India is among the global top spot holders when it comes to road crash fatalities and injuries. In 2021 alone, India reported over 4 lakh road crashes and over 1.5 lakh fatalities. Road crashes cost the Indian checker around 3% of the national GDP, which I think is an astounding number. More importantly, there is a loss of invaluable lives that leaves a huge vacuum at a family level and as well as at a society level. On an institution level, how does our country's road safety laws fare, given we are, as a nation, still struggling with the lack of apt road infrastructure, etc.? And how exactly does the implementation of these laws look like? Dr. Jose, what are your thoughts on road safety laws in India in general?
SaveLIFE has been in the forefront of advocating for road safety. And when you look at the laws in India, they are grounded in science and they're grounded in the realities that we face. I think a classic example might be the helmet laws or the rear seatbelt laws, which is now it's coming into full force. But the implementation on ground, the scenario changes slightly, and perhaps not many people realize it. I'll bring up maybe one classic example. So, one of the provision of the law is that you are not supposed to park your vehicle on the side of the highway. Now, this I think is under section 177 and it's non compoundable, which means that the person needs to go to the court to pay his fines, which also means that the police officer needs to go to the court to pay the fine. Now, simply because of this fact that the police officer needs to go, police officers have been a little bit reluctant to issue penalizations on parking on the expressway simply because once they issue the challans, they also then need to go to court at a later date to then verify and the other procedural hassles that might be there.
Wow.
So that becomes quite different when you see from an implementation standpoint. But on the other side, we also have to see the law as unlike the Eurocentric version, where parking on the expressway or side of the expressway is something that perhaps in a more developed countries, it might not even be something that they would think about doing. But in India, that's a harsh reality, and it disproportionately affects the poor people because they don't have another safer place to stop. So a law needs to come into place to tell them that this is really not okay and something needs to be done and you are not supposed to do something that might then endanger you, endanger others, and to keep the whole system safe.
Yeah, I didn't know about this police officer having to go to the court scene and how that impacts it. Thanks for sharing that with us, Dr. Mitra. I have a slightly digressing but related question for you, which is the
Mhm.
MVAA 2019
Mhm.
makes engineers and concessionaires responsible for the construction and maintenance of roads.
Yes.
Could you tell us the importance of this modification to the Motor Vehicle Act, which of course happened after many decades? What is your opinion on how to make the best of this law, that holds engineers accountable to create safe roads?
Yes. No, this is, I think, a huge thing. It's a big deal that we were able to pass this law and in 2019. So, and that's what most developed nation also follow. They follow certain act and rules and law. So I think like it's not about the punishment, but it's actually about holding someone responsible, right? So
Hmm.
that's the ultimate objective. So I have seen, many times that roads are not really maintained well. And whose responsibility is that? It's definitely the engineer's responsibility, right? So if they are not doing their job, then of course, somehow we have to make them accountable. And if this law gives us such provision to do it, I think so be it, right? So, and it's not only about maintaining the riding quality, like this is something different. And this was mainly our engineers have been doing since very long. They are just making the pavement very well, riding quality is fine. But it's not only about maintaining riding quality, it's also
Hmm.
seeing the road from a very holistic point of view and ensuring that you have safe operation. And one way I think this law can be enforced well is by
Hmm.
road safety audit. Now it's not that we are not doing road safety audit these days. We are still doing the road safety audit. But the problem is we are doing the road safety audit, but oftentimes we are not implementing the recommendations from those audit, right? So through this MVA Act, if we can ensure that engineers actually implement this road safety audit recommendations, and if they cannot implement it, they should actually explain what is holding them back, right,
Hmm.
from
Hmm.
not implementing. And then if they plan to implement something, they should also provide some timeline when they are going to implement it. So if we are doing audit thoroughly at different stages of road project, and then implementing these audit recommendations, mainly for the ones that are immediately needs to be done, which are very like the most priority recommendations. Then I don't see it's difficult. And it's if MVA can actually help engineers accountable this way, I think it's good for both.
Understood. Yeah. Uh, Dr. Jose, over the course, of this show, we've been speaking to many experts, and my understanding is that one cannot overstate the importance of the MBAA, right? In a country like India, what, in your words, in your opinion, is the implication of this law to our country?
So I want to take us back a little bit, maybe back in
Hmm.
2012. Um, I was a sandwich scholar in TU Darmstadt, Germany. And one day my professor is getting up, he's getting all his materials ready, going to the court. I'm like, why is a professor going to a court? Something that was completely unheard for me at that point of time. And the secretary of the professor replies, she says, well, the professor had designed a traffic signal in Frankfurt, and someone has complained that the traffic signal's yellow light is 3/10 of a second different from what it should be, because of which a crash has happened. Nobody has died, just a crash. And he's going
Wow.
to go and justify that based on the design speed, length of the intersection, and various other factors, that his design is actually accurate. So that was something unimaginable back then. What this law has brought for us here is that it has actually changed the way we perceive things, the way stakeholders react to the issue of road safety. So I think there was probably a point of time where the issue of road safety was never the engineer's problem. The engineer's fundamental issue was to create maybe a 4-lane highway or a 6-lane expressway and then create wider, faster roads. Safety was never a priority given. And now, as Dr. Mitra has said, the audits that comes out, it clearly articulates that here is the deficiency that you have and something the engineer needs to address. And engineering is, of course, a low hanging fruit. So, something that can be addressed, it can be quickly addressed if needed. And the whole thing is, it's just amazing for us. It also sits very well when we look at it from an organization perspective, because we aim to halve the deaths because of road crash. And I think this law stands in many ways in the center of it.
Hmm. As you're talking, and I've just been thinking, Dr. Mitra, we've been talking about the flip side of how things are in India. Dr. Jose, the example you gave of Germany is just extraordinary. I can't even imagine someone having an issue with that sort of a small deviation in numbers in India. But Dr. Mitra, I wanted to talk about the other part of this, right, which is from your vantage point. Are there any examples where India perhaps is doing a really good job in terms of road safety, that we should continue on?
Yeah, so like I would say we have done some of the things, right? We have this, the Supreme Court Committee on Road Safety, right? So I think that's a very good thing. Like, at least that's making the states accountable, right? The states are coming and they are presenting what they have done. So it's like, and someone is checking how you are performing, right? So I would say that's something, has worked very well in India. And then I would say, the civil society, for example, even SaveLIFE Foundation is doing so much work, because, it is huge. The problem is huge. It's not only the government or the public sector, but also the civil society, the private sector, they have to play a role, right? So I would say even the civil society, many, NGOs in India are actively working. And I think I see those are good things. And recently, World Bank also worked with ministry to prepare a project on state support program. The project was approved from the World Bank, but it is still not effective. But I see, these are initiatives. And also, this is a topic that is now discussed in media a lot, is also, very big thing. because it was not getting so much attention before. So I think India has definitely done something right, that we are, discussing that, and we are making all the things needed to make improvement in the right direction.
While a mind boggling number of road crashes, injuries, and fatalities are a part of our current road safety reality, so are interventions and technologies aimed at making roads across India safer. This includes road auditing, like Dr. Mitra said, infrastructural modifications, road safety capacity building through apt interventions, and the use of artificial intelligence for the enforcement of traffic laws. There are other such and many such activities as well. And let's discuss more of this with our guests. Dr. Jose, my question to you is, Save Life Foundation has been at the forefront of putting forth precise interventions to make our roads safer. The act we spoke about and the contribution of Save Life Foundation to that is just one example of this. One of the other initiatives is the Zero-Fatality Corridor program. We spoke about this briefly, but could you give us a little bit more detail on what this program is and what it aims to achieve?
Sure. So in just one line, Karthik, the Zero Fatality Corridor program is a replicable, scalable model of road safety. You can take it on a 100-kilometer highway, you can paste it onto 1,000 kilometers of highway, and you can keep it even on a 10 kilometers. And currently, we are working on this model across 15 states and more than 20 different highways. The one aspect of Zero Fatality Corridor is that we look at it from a comprehensive viewpoint. So there are various players who needs to come together to ensure that road safety becomes a success. I can um, I can put the best of the best engineering measures and design the best engineered road. But if I'm going to have a driver driving his unsafe, balded, tired car at 120 kilometers per hour on a downhill ramp, there's something limited that I can do to save a life. I need enforcement. I need emergency care. I need hospitals, ambulances, all those things stepping in. I also need education to step in to make sure that such crashes can be prevented. So the Zero Fatality Corridor program is a comprehensive look at the four E's of road safety, and I would say the five E's of road safety. So including enactment. So we look at engineering, enforcement, emergency care, education and awareness, and enactment. And then we try to reduce the fatalities. The way we do it is primarily rooted in data and evidence. So there needs to be very clear data that, hey, look, you have fatalities on this particular point at night. And the primary reason for your fatality is the vehicles are overspeeding. So then we know that, okay, these are the interventions that's going to work. Let's put it there. And it's a step by step approach. It's effective because we target the problem at the root and then we try to solve for it. But it's also a little bit long term because we also believe that it has to be replicable. So no stopgap measures, nothing that can give me an instant success and then I can say that, oh look, I've achieved it, I can move on. So that cannot be the situation. So it's also a kind of a long term measure that we're looking
The two words I absolutely loved in your answer are scalable and replicable. That gives me a lot of hope that it is not one of those laboratory projects, but it is actually something that we can replicate across the country, right? There have been many programs like this before, right? What about this program? If you have to pick, you describe the program in great detail. If you have to pick one aspect of the program which you think makes it really, really work in a setup like India, what would that be?
I think that would be that I think we are uniquely targeting Indian road behavior and we're uniquely taking up Indian solutions to it. Again, I think it's always best explained through examples. So um, there's this there's a small tactile edge lines we call it. So it's about a feet wide and you keep it on the leftmost side of the highway. The idea behind putting these kind of small rumble strips, so you hear a small sound when you go over them. The idea is that if you're drowsy or if you use the shoulder, which is meant for emergencies, and you do go over them, the sound will be enough to wake you up or make you realize that you're not supposed to go on that. So it was more of a deterrent and a fatigue measure. Now, when we did implement it, and it's well accepted. I think US has it in some form. I think Australia has it in a big way, and it's well documented, very effective. And we of course gave it in India, and we had two major findings. One is that Indian trucks are so rickety that when you go over these things, the amount of shake the truck has is so much that you don't hear the sound of the rumble. And the other one was that the drivers don't care that the rumble was there. They would put one wheel on the left side, one wheel on the right, and the rumble will be right between them, and they're going to go extremely fast. So then we had to go back to the drawing boards, figure out what worked. So now instead of putting a 1 feet wide one, we paved the entire shoulder with basically a rumble strip. So we just gave it throughout. On those locations, of course, where we have crashes, fatalities because of fatigue, fatalities because people are normally overtaking on the shoulders, which they're not supposed to. And we have found that to be effective. Now, that became a very effective deterrent. So I think the other aspect is perhaps rumble strips are also seen in many advanced countries as a traffic calming measure. People tend to slow down when they go over the rumble strips. The audio tactile sound that you hear, it really helps to slow you down. In India, drivers either they don't slow down, or I think they find that when you speed up, the rumble reduces a little bit because you're bouncing from the top of the rumble to the next rumble, so your cars doesn't shake as much. So they, in fact, they even speed up a little bit. So we have found that rumble strips, while effective in many countries, are simply not as effective in India. And I think there was a World Bank study which pointed to the same thing. So these were things that was uniquely we had to say that it had to be curated for India, solutions where our drivers can understand, solutions where we showed drivers signages of P with a red cut on it, which basically said you're not supposed to park. We asked the drivers, what does this mean? And we had drivers from Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, across the board. And they're like, sir, ye to P hai, which means, sir, this is a P, which means parking. They are very well aware of it. The part there's a red cut on top of it, which prevents it, is not registered for them. So they are also not trained enough. We had to actually change signboards in some cases to show two vehicles crashing at that point for them to understand. So unique tailored solution has been something that's very unique. I mean, it's really effective when you tailor it to your audience instead of perhaps just a simple plug and play.
It's amazing. Dr. Mitra, while Dr. Jose was talking about all of this, I think there were two thoughts in my mind. Right? One is this is so customized and this is so rational and scientific that it gives one a lot of hope on how we can solve this for India. But at the same time, when he was talking about the rumble strips, I'm also thinking that this is going to require a lot of funds. It's going to require a lot of investment in this. In situations where where there is a large lack of funds, right, and that's very possible in smaller towns, in multiple other situations in a country like this. What is the way forward in situations like that? How do you sort of handle that challenge?
Yeah, so I would say, in one word or one line, that private capital mobilization, and also involvement of civil societies. For example, again, a World Bank study recently has shown there is a large gap on the need for road safety investment and how much the public funding can bring. So if this is the need and public funding can bring only this much, then the remaining has to be addressed through private capital and private funding. And in this regard, again, World Bank and IFC, International Finance Corporation of World Bank's sister organization, we have actually prepared a document on mobilizing private finance in road safety, and it clearly shows cases in and areas where private financing can be very relevant, and it will be win-win for both private sector and also for road safety road users. So I think this we need to again discuss in discuss more in media, and also make Indian private sector aware that they also have a very important role to play. Otherwise, it's not possible for us to deliver road safety only with public money. It's just impossible.
You know, I'm. It gives me a lot of hope that extraordinary minds rooted in technology, like the two of you, are helping solve this massive problem that we are facing as a country. I wanted to end, this discussion on a positive note. So my question is to both of you, whoever wants to start first. Of all the things that you've seen, in your journey so far, what is the one thing that gives you hope?
Okay, maybe Roshan, you want to go first? I have
Sure,
already
ma'am.
said
Sure, I'll be happy to. So I think the most hopeful thing, and I want to take us back to a time. Perhaps Karthik, you are also aware. There was a time of ambassador cars and premier Padminis in India, and
Absolutely.
our worry was just like getting from A to B was the biggest worry.
Yeah.
I think by the time I was probably in my eighth or ninth ish, and a decade or so later, we started having better roads. We started having wider roads, and our worry started shifting to how do we overtake faster. And then, of course, I don't think road safety was ever spoken in such high regard. And then we had 4 lane roads, and then we had 6 lane high roads. And I think in 2002, probably, we had the first expressways and a host of expressways coming up. And there was a gradual shift in the narrative from just a road to a better quality of roads and faster vehicles. But now, in time, we are seeing that there is more and more concern. There is more empathy towards road safety. There is a road safety has come into the forefront. So people are buying child seats. It is there is an industry revolved around safety equipments. People want to buy 5-star safety rated cars. So people have become aware of it. Officers have become empathetic to the cause. There is a lot of movement happening. There is a lot of talks happening, and overall, there is a paradigm shift towards road safety, which I think is, as we stand and speak now, this is the first in the country where such kind of shift is happening. And I think that is our most hopeful point that we have started talking about it, and now we are actively starting to bring change into it.
Absolutely. Dr. Mitra?
yes. Yes, very well said, Roshan. And I think, whatever Roshan said, yeah, I agree fully to all of those. And I would say that, the very fact that even public is demanding better and safer roads, that makes the case, very different than how it was before. And then another thing that road safety is multi-sectoral, not only, the engineers, the safer vehicle, the emergency transport system, the good hospitals, then the safety gears, all of these will actually play a big role that actually has already been understood by the road safety professionals and by the government, I think, overall. So the different departments in the government are actually involved, they are collaborating. So that actually again gives me a big hope that we are making good progress towards better road safety.
And to us as well. Thank you so much, both of you, for talking to us, Dr. Mitra and Dr. Jose. This has truly been a very, very insightful conversation for me, as well as I'm sure for the audience. That brings us to the end of another episode of Milestones, the Save Life podcast. My name is Karthik Nagarajan. If you have been tuning in, and if you feel that road safety deserves way more attention than it gets, please do consider sharing this episode with your family and friends. Do also review us on whichever podcast apps you listen to us on. If you're watching this on YouTube, do leave a comment to let us know what you would like to see us cover next. For more on all things road safety, please visit Save Life Foundation's website at www.savelifefoundation.org or any of its social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you in the next episode, and in the meantime, drive safe, stay safe.
IVM